Good morning.
Welcome, everyone. We're going to do the prelude together in just a moment. I'm Reverend Erin Walter. I'm so happy to be here with you at San Gabriel UU this morning. And I just wanted to give you a little context before we get started. Number one, we're going to be doing some of our hymns a cappella, because that's the way we do it in the streets, and that's the way we do it at the Capitol, and all of the places where the Texas UU Justice Ministry brings music from this place out into the world. So that's number one. We'll do our prelude together a cappella. And then if you're new or have never seen these T-shirts on your seats are part of Vidas Robadas, or Stolen Lives, an installation and that's highlighting gun violence in our communities. These are folks who have lost their lives to gun violence. And so the Texas UU Justice Ministry, which I lead, and Texas Impact, our partner that TexUJM is a part of, have been doing these installations all around the state with churches and schools. And so we thank you for being a part of that, and Michelle Augustine for asking to do. Not right now, Michelle. She's like, come right up. But anyway, so that's the context for where you're sitting today. Each one of these shirts represents a real person. So in the spirit of gathering and worship, let's center ourselves, and I invite you to sing with me, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, our prelude. It's number 188, and it starts in C. There you go. Come, come, whoever you are, wander, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Beautiful. One more time. Come, come, whoever you are, wander, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Beautiful. See, you have what you need always.
The music you just heard is your invitation to settle in and prepare for our worship service. Please put your phones and devices in airplane mode for the duration of the service. This keeps them quiet and helps us provide a higher quality stream for our siblings attending virtually. Please know that whoever you are, wherever you are from, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, that you are welcome here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whether you are here in the sanctuary or watching from at home, whether this is your first time with us or your 1,000th time, we are glad that you are here. My name is Kelly McGinty, and my pronouns are she, her. I am honored to be leading as your lay leader today. I have served San Gabriel in various capacities over the year, including working on the board and within our hospitality team, and I currently lead the drum circles that we do every full moon. So you should come check that out sometime. San Gabriel is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association. We are a movement working for a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. Sustaining each other here in community is one part of that work.
Thank you, Kelly. Shall we take a breath together? We've made it to December. I am the Reverend Erin Walter. I use she, her pronouns. I have been with you quite a few times before along the 10 years of my time as a UU minister here in Texas, and it is always such a joy to be back with you. As some of you know, I serve as the minister and executive director of your Texas UU Justice Ministry. That's your state action network. We work together, and I celebrate all the work. When I say we made it to December, I say that because I know how much work you've all been putting in all year to get out the vote, to be present in your community with these installations like Vidas Robadas. You've done a lot this year. And so I'm here today as much as anything to celebrate you and to thank you for all that you've done in this community. I bring with me today my dear friend and bandmate, Andrew Solin, on guitar. It is his first time here, and we are really happy to get to share some Parker Woodland songs with you today, acoustic. As some of you know, I also play in a rock band, and we enjoy bringing our music with us to church in the fullness of what it is to be UU. So good morning to all of you, and now we light our chalice, the symbol of our faith, knowing that our UU siblings in the 40 congregations that are part of TechSujum all around this state and the hundreds all around the world light the chalice with us. We light this flame to remind us love is the center. As we grow and connect, mature and deepen, love remains the center. When the light of truth burns all else away, love remains. Hymn number 1 today, I invite you to rise in body and or spirit. Does anybody know this joy? I'm going to teach it to you. And this is, again, how we do it at TechSujum. You may have seen pictures. Maybe you were there when we were in the rotunda at the Capitol. This is one of the songs that we do. And let's see. We do, it's not Morning Has Broken. I do love that song. But it's cool. But this joy, the lyrics are very simple. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. And we do that a couple times, and then it's the world didn't give it to me, the world can't take it away. And I'll sing it, and then when you feel it, you can join in, all right? It goes, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. You sound so good. Let's try this piece. This piece that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, no. This piece that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that this piece that I have, the world didn't give it to me. No, I said the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. This love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. One more time, this pride like you mean it. This pride that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh no, this pride that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that this pride that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. And now we do that last line. The world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. Yes. Woo! Beautiful, beautiful. And like I said, now you're ready to come to the Capitol with us and do it. I believe in that spirit of joy that we've just harnessed. It's time for joys and sorrows. Another tradition that really connects us with Unitarian Universalism all around the state and all around the world. Sometimes we're carrying something in our hearts that can prevent us from being fully present, or a joy that would be amplified by sharing it, or a burden or a grief that could be lessened by letting our siblings carry it with us. Like all good medicine, concentrated and potent, please, in a sentence or two. If you're carrying a joy or sorrow, or both, I invite you now into our practice of sharing. Let's take a moment of silence first to ask ourselves what is deepest and truest on our heart today. So for all those prayers and hopes, sorrows and joys that remain unspoken, the community is with you. Spirit of life and love, I thank you for this day, for the opportunity to find meaning in the mystery together. And we hold in our hearts those who are suffering, who are ill, estranged or lonely in our communities. We ask that love at the center also reach out and embrace the all this day and every day. Amen, and blessed be.
So it is time for the Wonder Box. I've been here for many years and I have never gotten to do the Wonder Box. So this is a big day for me, guys. So we do have a clue for the Wonder Box. It's a verbal clue, which is nice, because I feel like everything in the Wonder Box sounds like it's the exact same thing, because it's just the sound of like. So the clue is, what do Eve and Isaac Newton have in common? Oh, that was a really good clue. That was a good clue. So yes, I'm going to open the Wonder Box. Our apple looks like a tomato because it is. But it is an apple today. So, all right. So, I'm really good at this. You guys should let me do this all the time. Let's see. Today's Wonder Box word was apple. And we have a story for you. Some apples have dark red skin. Sometimes it's light green. Some are speckled or strained. Some are my favorite, and they're baked into pies. And the story today is called Skin Again. It's by Bell Hooks. It's illustrated by Chris Rashka, and it's going to be provided by our own Eric Hepburn. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Skin Again by Bell Hooks, illustrated by Chris Rashka. Dedications. All the joy of the love community to knowing each other from the inside. Lisa, Chris, Jackie, Ann, and Garen. Bell Hooks for Marion Nels, CR. The skin I'm in. Is just a covering. It cannot tell my story. The skin I'm in is just a covering. If you want to know who I am, you have got to come inside and open your heart way wide. The skin I'm in looks good to me. It will let you know one small way to trace my identity. But then again, the skin I'm in will always be just a covering. It cannot tell my story. If you want to know who I am, you have got to come inside. Be with me inside the me of me, all made up of stories, present, past, future. Some true to life, and others all fun and fantasy, all the way I imagine me. You can find all about me, coming close and letting go of who you might think I am. Before you come inside and let me be real, and you become real to me. All real then, in that place where skin again is one small way to see me, but not real enough to be all. The me of me, or the you of you, for we are all inside, made up of real history, real dreams, and the stuff of all we hope for when we can all be real. Together on the inside. The end.
All right, it's our time to sing the children out, if we have children that are going to RE. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Beautiful. It's anthem time. As Andrew's setting up for us to do the anthem, I'll say a couple of things. One, I hope that by doing this, some of our music a cappella today, it both emboldens you to sing whenever you want. I sing when I'm walking my dog. I sing our hymns. They accompany me through life. So just sing anytime. But also, if you miss the piano, which I also miss the piano, you can appreciate your pianist when they return and tell them how excited you are that they're back. Or if they're here now, you can clap for them now. So the song that Andrew and I are going to do is a Parker Woodland song. Parker Woodland is the name of my band. It's for the neighborhood where I live, Parker Lane and Woodland Avenue in Austin. And this song, Makeup, is directly related to the work of the Texas UU Justice Ministry. A few years ago, I was with a lot of folks like yourselves, maybe some of you were there, protesting outside the governor's mansion, in support of our trans-inclusive families and kids. And one of the kids had a sign that said, "Not ready to die yet." And it broke my heart. The fight for healthcare is for all of us. We all need healthcare. And so this song was my attempt to transform that heartbreak into something triumphant for that child. So lonely in a crowd, sometimes nothing helps. You're always trying, but you get so tired. Burning in your own skin, can't they see what's happening? You're a butterfly becoming, no matter what they say. And your father comes downstairs, you know who he'll blame. You just keep fighting, 'cause it hurts to hide. Put your makeup on, boy, you know you're not gonna die yet. It's your party now, you know who you are. Put your makeup on, boy, you know you're not gonna die yet. Get your favorite dress and your glitter on. Put your makeup on, boy, you know you're not gonna die yet. It's your party now, you know who you are. Put your makeup on, boy, you know you're not gonna die yet. Get your favorite dress and your glitter on. Oh, you know who you are, and you don't know the many thing. You know who you are, and you don't know the many thing. You know who you are, and you don't know the many thing. You know who you are, and you don't know the many thing. You know who you are. You know who you are. You know who you are. You know who you are, and you don't know the many things. You know who you are. 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 Thanks. That's a prayer for us all to be loved for who we are.
Thank you guys both for that. That was really nice. So now we are going to do a reading. I invite you into a place of deeper stillness and reflection. This excerpt is from Katie Massa Kennedy from the Huffington Post in 2016. The lore of the conniving shrew, the cunning wench, the lying Jezebel. This embodiment of untrustworthiness in female form has been carefully crafted over history and is genius in its simplicity. Gut the credibility, remove the voice. And in a country such as ours, with stronger Judeo-Christian ties than any other westernized nation, it is particularly compelling. Eve giving Adam the apple is a powerful illustration of the cultural casting of a woman caught in her penchant for treachery, complete with a faith-based otherworldliness that makes it irrefutable by design. This caustic trope has been reliably reincarnated in the Salem witch, the woman's suffragist, the second-wave feminist, the modern-day gold digger, all in an attack on veracity that deliberately seeks to cast doubt on a woman's intentions and actions, and succeeds in nullifying her words before she can even speak them.
Our sermon this morning, and excuse me, you can tell I'm struggling with my voice. We've been on a little tour, the band, so I'm finding my voice, but not because someone has cast me in my penchant for treachery, all right? But because I've been singing my heart out. So our sermon this morning is called From Eve to Us. And first of all, I had hoped when Eric Hepburn and I scheduled this visit for me that we would be celebrating different results of our election, particularly that I could be celebrating with my daughter our first female president. The sermon I'm giving you today was written in 2016, when I also had hope for our first female president. I share it with you today because, well, by request. People were asking for it, and I won the UU Women's Federation Sermon Award for this one and got to preach it at General Assembly in New Orleans in 2017. And when people were asking if I would give it again, I thought, well, I will update it. But then I read it, and not a whole lot has changed. Some things are worse. But I invite you to think about where you were in 2016, and where we are now, and the way that gender, sexism, misogyny, and stereotypes in general for who we are as people affect you in your life. So when I was in seminary, people were always suggesting books to me, as though seminarians have extra time for extra books. And more than once it was Reading the Bible Again for the First Time by Marcus Borg. And I told those kind recommenders that if they were just to take away the word again, then that would be me. I grew up a lifelong Unitarian Universalist humanist at your sibling congregation, First UU Austin. And so I had not really read the Bible until I got to seminary. It was not part of my church upbringing. But I have to say, I'm not proud of that. I really believe that many Unitarian Universalists, especially lifelong UUs like myself, need greater literacy in sacred texts of world religions, including Christianity and Judaism, because we are called as UUs to be in interfaith community for the work to bring about justice and the beloved community that we aspire to. This t-shirt project, for example, is an interfaith project. So when I wrote this in 2016, I said to myself, you have to start somewhere. So I went back to Genesis. And here is a piece of chapter 3 in the People's Bible. God said, "You shall not eat the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, nor shall you touch it or you will die." But the serpent said to the woman, "You will not die, for God knows that when you eat it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened. In this story, God tells Eve that she will die. But does she? Who are my people who've read the Bible? Does she die? No, she doesn't die. Many of us grew up with this message that Eve ruined paradise for everyone, and it was her fault that we humans had to spend our lives atoning, trying to make paradise great again, if you will.
But Unitarian Universalism encourages us to question, to not just accept one version of a story or one way. The stories of our heritage and our literature, and make no mistake, the Bible is part of UU heritage. We come from Christianity out of England, out of Transylvania, when we came to Boston and then grew out from there. This is our heritage, even if we have evolved. And so here are my questions for our heritage text. Just who is lying in this Genesis story? Whose motives should arouse suspicion? The woman who chooses knowingly to seek wisdom and face good and evil head on? The animal who is maligned through the ages, but if you read the actual text, told Eve the truth about her choices? Or the fear-mongering entity in power, who made a bold, hollow threat to the people, trying to hang on to that feeling of exclusiveness and hierarchy. How different 2,000 years of Judeo-Christian history and much of ours might be if Eve were respected, admired for her choices, and I say choices on purpose here, and her willingness to seek knowledge, beauty, and take risks. We have a lot to be inspired by from her. It is not too late to rethink some of these stories that have seeped into our culture and created oppression for us. Another world is possible, and in fact, another world has already been written. Scholar Susan Niditch writes this in the Women's Bible Commentary. Genesis 3 has been misunderstood, and Eve is the protagonist, not her husband. This is an important point, Niditch writes, as is the realization that to be the curious one, the seeker of knowledge, the tester of limits, is to be quintessentially human. I read that and I thought, wow, Eve would make a pretty great Unitarian Universalist, or at least the kind I aspire to be. Let's talk about where women are in our UU movement. In 2016, when I wrote this, the UUA, our Unitarian Universalist Association, of which we're all a part, had its first female president at the time, the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, who was appointed, along with two men, a trio of leaders of color for the first time for our movement. Then we elected our first female UUA president, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, following, and now the Reverend Dr. Betancourt is back, this time elected and serving a full term as our president, the first woman of color to lead our faith solely. Bless you. It was my honor to co-lead worship with Reverend Sophia in October at our UU congregation in Plano, Community UU, for our UU The Vote weekend. And you all were on our hearts and minds as we did that. You did a lot of postcards over here, didn't you? A lot of getting out the vote. So Reverend Sophia is aware of how much Texas has done, and she came to be with us in celebration of your work. This is a crucial time for women and non-binary and trans people in our movement, as well as people of color in our movement. Reverend Ashley Horan said this in her Berry Street lecture at General Assembly in 2017. Everything is falling apart. And I feel that way a lot. And as we put it back together, it helps to name what we don't really want to bring with us. I don't really want to bring the sexism and the homophobic chants that we're hearing in the streets, emboldened by the rhetoric in our politics and online. I drove my daughter to school the day before the election. There were two men holding signs just on the public corner of her high school where parents drop off their kids, such that the police couldn't tell them they had to move because it was just that inch of public space. But holding up signs with just a litany of all the hateful things, hateful grab bag signs that I won't repeat. but one of the men was wearing a shirt that said, "Your body, my choice." I was bringing my daughter, who is queer, and her best friend, who is non-binary, to school, and we, on the eve of what should be the best day for democracy, we had to see that, deal with that, think about how to respond to that. We have a group of parents who show up with our rainbow flags, and we sing, and we in order to let the kids know how much they're loved. But we've been doing this for so long. These guys have been showing up at schools all over for years and years and years. And so sometimes you say to yourself, I'm not going to give that any more energy. But it's hard being a mom and having to make those decisions. It's hard living in this world. And one of the things I want to say as I look out at you, so many of you did the work to get reproductive rights in this country, civil rights in this country, so many of you. And I know it must hurt to be losing some of those legal protections right now and to have to fight for things like voting rights. Last time I was here, I talked with one of your folks about needing to have a polling place in a spot in Georgetown that was more welcoming for people of color. That was a concern that came forward from the congregation last time. And my heart is with you that this is where we are after all the work you've done. And all I can do is promise you again and again and again, and live into that promise every day with your TechSouJim team and all the volunteers from all the congregations, that we will never give up on our human rights, our civil rights, our voting rights, reproductive rights, never. We will keep doing this work. But the tropes and dismissals that nullify a woman's words before she can even speak, that gut the credibility, remove the voice, it goes against our first principle of Unitarian Universalism, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. So to root out, as you heard from Kelly in the reading from Katie Massa Kennedy, to root out that biblically based, otherworldly religious story that women are less, or if you are feminine, you are less, it's on us now as the progressive people of faith to be loud and proud out in the community with the work that we do. A lot of you want to say, like, we're not a church, it's not really a religion. I beg you to claim the mantle of people of faith, of religion, because we can't cede it to the people who are out there saying, your body, my choice. You are needed as a progressive faith voice. And none of this dismantling patriarchy and battling misogyny is in our heads. We also like to be in our heads. We like to think. We're philosophers, we're researchers, we're professors, many of us, not all of us, but many of us. But we have to remember that this is real life stuff that is affecting people every single day. Some examples of how shamefully unequal pay and poor conditions for women in the workplace and for all people who do so-called women's work, like teaching or caregiving. A United States where trans women are murdered at a record rate, almost all of them women of color. At the time of the writing of this sermon, there were 23 in 2016, and the year wasn't over. And again, the loss of our rights to the rise of extremist white Christian nationalism. So today, because I don't have the answers for you, each of you is living a different life. Each of you has privilege and power to leverage in different places and is coming to this question of how do we live truly the first principle that everyone has inherent worth and dignity. How do we do that? I invite you this morning to think, pray, or be about what you might do in your particular context, your job, your household, this church. Because if we think about the whole history, that's too overwhelming. But if I think about 75 of you each making changes in different places in the community, that is incredibly hopeful to me. One of the things we can do, and I commit to you to do, is to think about the stories we tell. This meaning making of the mystery, thank you for that phrase. That was really beautiful. The stories that we tell, how we make meaning, are so important. So here's an example from 2016. When my daughter Ace, who was 7 at the time, I was driving her and her brother David to school, he was 4, and she asked, "How many girl presidents have we had?" And I choked on a lump in my throat to say to her and her brother, "None." In 230 years, none. That should still stagger us. Let me be clear. That should still absolutely stagger us. But I wish, rather than just being sad and depressed by that answer for my children, I wish it had occurred to me to tell this story, to educate her about Shirley Chisholm, who in 1972 became the first Black candidate for a major party's nomination for US president. I wish I had told her about the rest of the world, gone beyond this idea of American exceptionalism where our examples are the only examples, and told her about the 20 female heads of state or government that were leading countries right then. We've got to think beyond our narrow spaces, find the good news, and use it to be inspired. Like Eve, we need to choose knowledge. I invite us also to take a look at the behaviors in our congregations. I once sat in a church committee meeting in one of your sibling congregations as a group of good people rushed to get an important job done on a deadline. At one point, a woman in the committee spoke up and said this: "I raised this issue months ago because I knew we needed time to get it done. No one responded to my email. The committee only acted when a man brought it up months later." She said, "I have dealt with this at my job. I am frustrated to deal with it at my church. It is only getting worse as I get older," she said. No one wants to listen to older women. We love this woman, and our intent was never to ignore her, but we did. And our intent does not always equal our impact. And so I invite us, and I promised her I would tell her story, to invite us to think about how we're responding to each other and whose ideas, whose emails we're giving attention to. In the Obama administration, they used a practice called amplification. When a woman made a key point in a meeting, other women would repeat it and give credit to the author. This forced everyone in the room, the men in particular, to recognize the contribution and not claim it as their own. Female staffers increased from 1/3 of the Obama administration staff to half by the second term, representing the real world much better. It's a strategy that any of us can use in our lives, and people like to be given credit for their ideas. We all do. So I invite you to pay attention to that and call it a spiritual practice. Now, I want to speak to the men. I'm married to a man. I have a son that I love so much, and I take the responsibility of raising a son in this society very seriously, as joyful as it is. He's the funniest person in my life. He makes me laugh all the time, too. But we know that sexism affects people of all genders across the entire gender spectrum. And so men, if it's a little uncomfortable to hear someone talk about women so much, you might put yourself in our shoes and have some empathy for us, as that is the reverse often, and also just that you are on my heart about this because I know it affects you. And here's one story for that. In 2016, I asked one of the Wildflower men, that's Wildflower UU in South Austin, Kurt Kadena Mitchell, to share his feelings on this topic because I wanted to hear how it affects men. He was our board vice president and a young adult leader in the community at the time. Later, he became the chief of staff for the city of Austin, and he's now a Quaker seminarian. In our church photo directory, Kurt wore a shirt that said, "Women's rights are human rights." So I emailed him to ask why. I didn't know if he would even get back to me, very busy guy. But he wrote me a long message that brought me to tears, and I'm going to read it to you in full. Kurt writes, I've been thinking about why a woman's nomination for president makes me tear up, catch my breath, and wipe away happy tears in a different way. Growing up, one of the biggest things that frequently made me feel out of place, a misfit, or less valuable was around concepts of masculinity. What it meant to be a man or a boy. I didn't usually fit that picture. I played house, dolls, dress up. I used my Star Wars action figures to set up toy schools and hospitals or convents of nuns. He was Catholic before he was a Quaker. He says, I didn't like contact sports. I preferred the company of my aunts, grandmother, and other female relatives. I knew from the media, school, and society what a little boy should be like. I wasn't exactly that picture. In a hometown that was majority Latino, I had ample examples of people who looked like me in positions of power. That is not to say that racism didn't manifest in ugly ways. It did. But I had strong counter messages that my culture, race, and heritage were something to be proud of. Being gay was more isolating. My biggest anxieties and feelings of being less than worthy were rooted in not fitting the standard of masculinity, regardless of whether the messages were sent explicitly or implicitly. So when I see a woman nominated for president in one of the two major parties, I get emotional. Now I see an example that you don't need to be a man with all the meaning attached to that word to be a badass, get it done, kick butt, and take names, trailblazer, who puts herself in the spotlight despite ridicule, animosity, and violence. Was Hillary Clinton my first example of this? No, of course not. Absolutely not. My first examples were my mother, who stood up to bullies for me, my grandmother, who fought as hard as she could for her family's future, my aunts, who never let a man define their life or their future, my female cousins, who were living proof of courage, resilience, and hard work. It doesn't surprise me that to focus on the negative of this historic presidential campaign would be happening. It was never my race that made me consider taking my own life. It was the messages the world sent that masculinity was better than femininity. Being feminine was less valuable, and if you were feminine, you were worthless. If you were feminine, you were worthless. Those messages have a very real impact on people. We've come a long way in a lot of ways, but we have a lot of work to do. For women's rights, for gender rights, our candidate this time around had to state to the media in an interview that not all women are aspiring to be humble. There's a lot of that wanting to go back to women's roles that are forced humility as opposed to authentic humility, which we all, people of all genders, have the right to express themselves in all ways, not to be forced to be one thing. And let me be clear, this is not about particular candidates. This is church. That's not what we do here. But these are examples of what it's like for all of us in different ways. With all of this in mind from 2016 and knowing that it still affects us today, I invite you please to get involved in the work of your social justice group, in the work of paying attention at church to whose messages get received and acted upon, at home, out in the world, and with your Texas UU Justice Ministry. We will go to the Capitol on March 17th for our UU Legislative Action Day. I can only be certain that there will be bills for us both to fight for and against that have to do with the issues that you've heard about today and that you know about. I know you already know. I'm naming things that we know. So I hope, as one of our Central Texas congregations and a congregation so dedicated to justice and love, that you will join us in making your voice heard, not letting anyone's voice be silenced by the powers that be. And I invite you to imagine a Genesis and therefore a world where Eve is a hero and not a villain, and understand women, genderqueer people, and people of all genders as protagonists in our collective liberation story. May it be so. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Let's see where we go from here. I'm looking. The offertory will now be gratefully taken and received. Thank you all for your intense and thoughtful listening.
We take an offering each week to sustain this spiritual home and to support the work of our fellowship. If you are visiting, we invite you to fill out a visitor card, which can be put in the plate or returned to the visitor table. For offertory music today, we have Parker Woodland.
Sometimes we are called to add our voice to the chorus. Sometimes we are called to speak aloud the message that is resonating on our hearts. So this time in the service, if you are called to reflect, express gratitude, or share a brief announcement, please raise your hand and Kelly will bring you the microphone.
So I'm going to do a little reflection. As I was listening to the sermon today, I started thinking about my own 13-year-old daughter who I have at home. And she was also really excited about the election and really disappointed when she woke up and there was not the first female president. But one of the conversations I remember us having was that she was talking about the kids at school and the different children who were, voicing different beliefs about different things, which is typically, a reflection of what their parents think and what that looks like. But one of the things she said was that, people asked her why she wanted a female president. And she said, because I want a female president. And, she thought that was a good enough reason. She thought that the fact that it was a female president was a good enough reason. And the kids told her, and I imagine it was, male children told her, that's not a good enough reason. And so she was asking me, is that not a good enough reason? And I was just like, it is a good enough reason. It's valid. You can have any reason you want. If the only reason you have is that you want a female president because you want to see somebody that looks more like you in this kind of office, nobody can tell you that that's not a good enough reason. But it was so confusing to her. Why? Why is that not a good enough reason? And so that's just my reflection of that. So thank you. Does anybody else have an announcement or, all right.
Thank you, Kelly. And thank you, Reverend Walter, for what you said today. On behalf of the social justice team, we're having a very timely lunch meeting today. If you come out of this with some energy to work for social justice, and if you want a free sandwich, we'll be meeting down the way in the last building as soon after the service as we can gather. And thank you all.
Mm-hmm. I'll add to that announcement. I tell people this is not my favorite sermon to give. I would rather laugh more. I would rather talk about dancing as a spiritual practice. You all know that. And we have a lot of fun doing justice work together. There is food, there is singing, we do laugh, we do fun things, And so even as this is one of the harder sermons for me to deliver, I also want to make sure that I let you know that when we get together as the Texas UU Justice Ministry, and I hope that will include you in 2025, we have fun.
I saw someone back here, and then I saw.
Lovely, lovely sermon. Just what it brings to mind to me is how to possibly reach others who don't agree for the less or more part. I've had friends who have told what they would call jokes, to me about, one of his coworkers choosing to use different pronouns, and I'm like, why do you care? I cannot begin to understand people who care so much. If some of my old coworkers, before I quit, and part of the reason was that I quit was because they were just making me sick with their rhetoric. And I told him, his name was Rick. I was like, Rick, you want to come in here with a dress and call yourself Susie? I don't care, man. You do whatever you want. It's great to me to be surrounded by like-minded people. But as we all know, there's millions and millions and millions and millions who, for whatever reason, seem to think that their fellow human beings are not worthy of respect, are not worthy of love, are not worthy to be thought of as equals, whether by their gender they were born with or what they choose to be. I don't have a solution, obviously, but I don't even know where I'm going with this. It's just... It's rough, for everybody. And me as a man, I know I have it easier than my wife and my daughter. Even as a person of color, I know that my life has been easier in some respects. As a young man, going to downtown and seeing the way men, even some of my, again, old friends who I just dumped, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to be surrounded by these kind of people.
What is your name?
Alex.
Hi, Alex. May I say something with you? I just want to thank you for standing up and speaking about your experience. First of all, I read from a friend who was really struggling emotionally in this time, a woman. She said, we need good men to be loud right now. We need your voices. And so you just standing up to talk about what it's like for you is a piece of hope for me. And I think all of you here in Georgetown and in the communities where you are, you just one conversation at a time, and your heart came so through just talking right now, and hopefully people little by little will hear that in your own communities. But I know it's hard. And I just thank you.
My wife knows I have no problem with being loud. But brighter minds than me need to come up with a solution, because as I see it, we just want to live in two different worlds, in two different countries, in two different
Yeah.
like planes of existence where, you know, I see a human being as a human being. They're not less than, you know, they can be wherever they want to be. And whether we are here by a creator or we're here by chance, we have free will and we get to choose.
Yeah. Well, thank you. A very small percentage of people were against slavery in the beginning. And so we know that a small group of people can grow and grow. Thank you.
As we prepare to return to the world, we remind ourselves through our affirmation to carry our work from this place to every corner of our lives. Please join me in the call and response. Love is the doctrine of this church.
We are here to love.
The quest of truth is its sacrament.
We are here to learn.
Service is its prayer.
We are here to care for others.
To dwell together in peace.
We are here to live in peace.
To seek knowledge in freedom.
We are here to honor our differences.
To serve humanity in fellowship.
We are all connected in spirit.
To the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine.
We are here to grow.
Thus do we covenant with one another.
This we promise to do together.
Please join me in reciting the words to extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame to remind us love is the center. As we explore the rest, engage and heal, love remains the center. When we ashes, love remains.
Can I give you a hug?
Oh, all the hugs.
Our benediction today is a musical one. It's a song you heard here maybe a few years ago from me, The World's on Fire, and we still fall in love. And we'll be hanging out in the back, Andrew and I, if you want to talk to me about the service, if you would like to get an album, we put it out on vinyl. And we have shirts and things like that. And yeah, if you know it, you can sing along. You'll probably learn it as we go. It's a hard time to look for hope when the shoes can't feel like a joke or worse. They tell you it's your fault if you trust. There's one thing I know, it's this: opposites to coexist, and the last thing they'll ever kill is love. World's on fire, we still fall in love. World's on fire, we still fall in love. World's on fire, we're not giving up. Say it's not worth it. I could give up before we know. 'Cause what's the use in having hope? And even though everything's wrong and it shows, I still look at you and I know one thing could be more good. World's on fire and we still fall in love. World's on fire and we still fall in love. World's on fire and we're not giving up. World's on fire and we still fall in love. We'll do this. World's on fire and we still fall in love. World's on fire and we still fall in love. World's on fire and we still fall in love. Woo! Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't tell if the microphone was working, but if you come and talk to me in the back, I'll sing it to you all over again. Have a wonderful Sunday, and I hope to see you soon.